Hey y'all, it's Christy Cook from Teadoddles. Today's Tutorial Tuesday is going to be just a little bit different. It's not a tutorial in the least, really. It is the Teadoddles origin story. So you're going to be learning something, but it's not a tutorial. So I decided to put it on this day anyway. So, that it's about where I got the name from my channel and my blog and everything else. So Teadoddles was the nickname of my little Meemaw. That's what I called her, little Meemaw. She was my, I guess you say was if they've already passed. I don't know, that seems weird. My dad's mother, she I'm gonna pop in a picture right here. And then y'all can take a look at her. I have a picture of her on my blog, on my about page. So that's where the name came from. She was, it started off as the story goes in my family. They used to call her Tea Dolly. I don't know what a tea dolly is, but because she was so small. My grandmother was not quite 5 foot, so but she had polio in her leg when she was a little girl, so it made one of her legs smaller than the other leg, and she always walked with a cane. So she, like I said, she wasn't quite 5 foot, so she was small, and they just it started as Tea Dolly, and then it eventually turned into Teadoddles. So that's what other people called her. Like everybody in my family pretty much called her Teadoddles. And when I decided to start a blog and everything, I was trying to come up with a name. At first I resisted calling it Teadoddles because I felt like it kind of sounded like a children's name for some reason, like clothing or something. I don't know. And I went through some other things, and eventually I just went, when I was doing the research for names, Teadoddles was not anywhere. Nobody had that name, okay? And then some people mistake it. I'm going to put the spelling of it right here, because a lot of times I've had people say Teadoodles, but it has 1 O and 2 D's at the end instead of 2 O's and 1 D. So that's why it's Teadoddles. So, if you ever heard me say it, you know that's how it's said. But there are some people that they don't necessarily even say that it's Teadoodles. They'll misspell it. So it's important to me that it's spelled correctly, as I'm sure that most people's names are important that they are spelled correctly. My first name, Christy, is misspelled all the time because there's a ton of ways to spell it. So nobody ever spells it right, and I don't get too mad about that because you can spell it so many different ways. But when some people in my own family misspell it, I get a little irritated. So anyway, so okay, back to the Teadoddles thing. Teadoddles, really, I just decided to go with that, and I think it stands out amongst the crowd a little bit because it's not something you typically see for this type of channel, although sometimes I think it keeps people from clicking on it because they don't know what that means, but which is why I tried to put my cover thing on the channel with all the crafty bits when I did that. So when I decided to start my blog, and that story is on my About Me page on my blog as well. I also have the stories about my journey with thyroid cancer. So one year, about 6 years ago, I had thyroid cancer. It started off in the beginning of the year. I found a lump in my neck, and then I had went through all the processes and stuff. There's more information for that. I'll put links down below to that specific story I wrote about my journey with thyroid cancer that year. But I had to have surgery, and I had to learn to live without a thyroid, which is not always fun. But that very same year, the company that I had worked for 13 years went out of business. That was not a great year for me. So after I recouped and stuff, I had to stay home, and that was a different experience for me because I've always worked. My husband said, stay home and get better. And, you know, I was teaching at the time, just like 10 hours a week was really all I was doing. So I spent a lot of time at home, which was unusual for me because that's not what I was used to. And I always loved crafting. I always loved making things. That was something I always loved doing. So I decided to start a blog after reading some other people's blogs. And then I had to come up with the name, and that's where the name came from. And that's what I filled my time with. And plus, my son was, he's in 9th grade at the time. I think that's right. So he was in high school, and it wouldn't be long before he would be gone. He's now 20, and he's been away at college for 2 years. He lives in Atlanta. He doesn't really come home. So he's not going to be moving back here if he can help it. So, anyway, so that's kind of what kicked off the whole Teadoddles thing. So I did blog for about 2 years or better before I decided to do the YouTube thing, right? My son used to watch YouTube all the time, and he would talk about it, and I was like, whatever, you know. And then when I got online and started looking up more about crochet and stuff, is when I discovered some people on YouTube, and I thought, well, I could probably do that. So I decided to start doing videos, and that's just kind of went from there. I've been on YouTube for a little over a year now. I've had a blog/website for about 3 years, and I've just started this past year to build the Teadoddles brand, so to speak, with selling my bags and stuff on Etsy. So yeah, that's where all that came from. So see, my Meemaw Teadoddles, I did not ever call her Meemaw Teadoddles. I always called her Little Meemaw because she was so short. And then my mother's mother was very tall, so we called her Big Meemaw. So that's where that came from. Meemaw is a common name for grandmothers in the South. My mother is now a Meemaw to my son, and my dad is a Pawpaw. Now, we always called my grandfathers Peepaw. So that's just what we called them. Now, she is the one who taught me to crochet. My Meemaw Teadoddle. She taught me when I was about 2 years old. I used to go sit with her. I used to love to go spend time with her. And yes, at 2 years old, I was chaining away. And I think she taught me a few things about going back, you know, and making something. But mostly what I did was chain because I just wanted to be with her. She's also the one who started my coffee addiction. I used to sit there and at the age of 2 drink coffee with her. Of course, I think it probably had more milk than coffee in it, but we always drank it in, it had to be teacups because they had saucers with them all the time. And we would always spill some in the saucers and drink it out of the saucers. I don't know why we did that, but I just remember doing that. And she liked to make crafty things all the time. As a matter of fact, I've got a couple of things that she made to show y'all that I still have. She, let's see, I can't remember when it was, but I kind of went away from, you know how crafting, sometimes you go away from things for a while and you come back to it. Probably came back to crochet probably my early 20s. I know I started sewing when I was about 16 or so. But at that time, she couldn't really show me but so much because she had to have open heart surgery at one time, and she had a stroke which paralyzed one side of her body, which happened to be the opposite side of the leg she had polio in. So she only had the use of one arm. Well, she was functional, you know, she could talk and all that stuff, but she only had the use of one arm physically. So she still did some crafty things. As a matter of fact, I forgot to pull out. She made my son a quilt that was like, it had the printed images, and she kind of colored them, and she did a little bit of stitching, what she could do with one hand. So I do have that too. So she was always a crafty lady. She always made all kinds of things. She did the crochet. As a matter of fact, that picture I showed you before, if you look closely, you can see a doily on top of her chair. And she was just a fun person. I enjoyed being around her, and I do miss her. So before I get all teary-eyed, let's move on. But she's the one that inspired my all of this. Lucky agrees. So I'm first going to show you some things that she made. She made this for me when I was a little girl. It's a plastic canvas little purse with, let's see, there's a dog with his tongue out. She loved the googly eyes. They seem to be on a lot of things. And a little flower and a butterfly. And then this on the side always cracks me up because there's another dog, but then there's this gigantic frog jumping. He has googly eyes too. So this is just the plastic canvas with the yarn. It's very rough feeling. You know, that yarn back then was pretty rough. But on the inside, she did put there's a little bit of fabric. It's not on the sides, but it's on here that she sewed down in there with the little wooden handles. So she made this for me when I was younger. Don't remember when, but I've had it forever, and I keep it in my little filing cabinet over there with my memory stuff so it doesn't get messed up. So that is pretty old. Let's see. Next month is my birthday. I'll be 42. So I've been crocheting since I was for 40 years almost. So I've had this for quite some time. Now this next one I'm going to show you is even older because she actually made it for my dad. I think when he was a teenager or something like that. He gave it to my mom when they got married. They gave it to me. They put it in my crib. So I have it in this box and in a plastic bag because it's kind of falling apart a little bit. But it's got a little hole, which I did try to fix, but it's stuffed with sunflower seeds, y'all. So this is supposed to be a frog. She used to make them, you know, where they lay out like that, and they said it used to have eyes on it, but that I pulled them off when I was a baby. I don't know. Think about that. Who would put something like that with a baby now? But I survived. Anywho, what is so funny about this is that this is like black velvet on the side, and this is like a fur on the side. This is a strange frog, y'all. But I've had it. So this is a pretty old thing, and that's why I keep it. It's stuffed with sunflower seed shells. That's what it's stuffed with. And it started getting a little hole. It's just a hole that wore into it. And I stitched it up, but it's still, they've started to degrade in there. You kind of hear them. So that's why I keep it in here, because you can see some of the stuff in the bottom of the bag. Just to kind of preserve it so that I can show people every now and then, because it's still pretty cool, even though your fingers get dusty when you touch it now. Yeah, so that is the second thing I'll show you. Now, my Mima also made quilts. Lord have mercy. Dust for days. So, only quilt that I personally have for her. I think she made this for my dad, actually. And I had it, and my son had it, and I didn't know how to properly take care of a quilt at the time. So, y'all, this quilt was falling apart. I mean, there was holes completely through the quilt is what I'm talking about, like big holes. So what I did, and it's tied up like this so I could keep it in that baggie over there, and you can see this cut edge of it. I had to cut away the parts that were just completely gone. And part of it is because it was a yarn tied quilt. You can see that. And it probably should have more ties in it to keep the batting from breaking up. But if I had took care of it and washed it better, it probably would have held together a little more. But all of these are, this is a piece, you know, and there's all kinds of funky fabrics on this quilt, which you can't see all of them, but I don't want to unfold it. But I'm going through, because there was still, even the parts that I kept, some big places. So I've got that pinned on there right now, but so I'm kind of stitching on fabrics that are just funky fabrics to fill in and sew, because I'm gonna eventually put a back on it, because the back is really worn out. It looks like it was probably an old sheet or something, and then put a new binding on it so I can have it to use sparingly, which is probably what will happen, because it's not very big anymore since I had to cut away all the bad parts, which, y'all, that really hurt to have to do. But in order for me to be able to have something that I could actually use or even display without it completely falling apart, I had to do it. So that really was not a fun thing to do, but I have what's left of it, and I've just got to finish fixing it. So those are some fun things that I have that my Teadoddles made. So let me think, is there anything else I wanted to tell y'all? I can't think of anything else at the moment. If you have any questions, you can certainly ask me down in the comments. It's been a fun journey for me doing all this. I'm super enjoying it still. Although I'm super busy right now, I enjoy doing all the making and stuff. I enjoy sharing it with others. I enjoy sharing my knowledge of crafting with others. And all of that, I feel, was passed down from my Teadoddles. Now, I will say that my mother's mother, who I just call Mima now, she's my only living grandparent, she is very crafty as well. Now, she sews and things. I just didn't spend as much time with her when I was younger as I did my little Mima. So, but she does a lot of floral arrangements and things like that. But she does like to sew as well. Now, she does not crochet, but actually my mother did neither of those things. So the sewing thing I just learned on my own. The crochet started out with my Mima teaching me that stuff, and then I picked it back up and had to, get myself re-familiar with the things. But yeah, that is the origins of Teadoddles. That's where the name comes from. That is who inspired everything that I do. I think she would really, really enjoy this crafty community. So, and I'm gonna let y'all go before I get all teary-eyed again. So, if you like this video, think about giving it a thumbs up. Think about subscribing. There's more fun stuff coming up this week. It's gonna be a busy week for videos if I can get them all out. So, y'all have a great week, and I will see y'all later. Bye.